So now we are going to dive into the final part of shaping the body. And we will do this by creating what's known as a decrease stitch, abbreviated as DEC. I'll explain how to make this stitch step by step as it's a new stitch for you, and we'll get you all set up for it. So for round 18, our pattern says to make 4 single crochets followed by a decrease stitch, and to repeat this sequence 6 times, resulting in 30 stitches total. Again, as you can see, for this stitch, we use the abbreviation DEC, which stands for decrease stitch. Now start by creating the initial set of 4 single crochets, following your pattern, and then return to learn the decrease stitch. But I also want to mention that it's not just any decrease stitch, but we are actually going to make an invisible decrease stitch. We've just created 4 single crochet stitches, so you should have 4 V's at this point. And now it's time to tackle the decrease stitch. To do an invisible decrease stitch, we want to put our hook under the front loops of the next 2 stitches. So what are front loops? This whole time I've been talking about the horizontal V's, and we know that the horizontal V consists of 2 loops. Now the loop close to us is called front loop. So instead of inserting our hook under our next available V, instead we are going to insert it under only the front loop of that V. And we are not going to stop here. We are going to place our hook under the front loop of the next horizontal V as well. Now we should have 3 strands of yarn on our hook. Just like when you do a regular single crochet stitch, make sure that your hook is in front of the working yarn and then yarn over. Now pull that yarn through the first 2 loops on your hook and you should be left with 2 loops on your hook. You are halfway through the decrease stitch. Yarn over and pull through again, so you've got just 1 loop on your hook. That's it, you have nailed the invisible decrease stitch. Now the last thing you need to know is where you put your hook after doing this cool decrease stitch. Since we have crocheted into the front loops, look at the top of your work and those horizontal lines, and you'll spot a stitch where the front loop seems to be pulled by another stitch. And this is where you have just done the decrease stitch. So for the next step, you'll place your hook under the next horizontal V that is untouched. And this is where you'll continue with a regular single crochet stitch to keep shaping your project. So we know that we have 4 single crochet stitches before we make another decrease stitch. And once you are done with your round 18, you'll notice that your piece is starting to close up at the top.